How do you rebuild your dynasty roster into a champion? We'll tell you on this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today is Matt Williamson. You can follow him on Twitter at Williamson NFL. You can check him out all over the Locked On Podcast Network. And Matt, today's show is for me because I am really bad at rebuilding my dynasty teams. I'm a little bit like your Pittsburgh Steelers, where I just want to be competitive every year. There's part of me that just has a hard time. I don't want to say throwing away a season, but you know what I mean? Like knowing that I'm not going to be able to compete. So my first question for you, and we're going to talk about how to rebuild your team into a dynasty champion, but how do you know when it's the right time to rebuild?
It's really tough, and it's actually one of the most important and most difficult things in dynasty overall. And so when Ryan and I were doing the show and Dynasty Blueprint way back when, he came up with the term the productive struggle instead of tanking. You know, we're not trying to lose here. You know, we're still putting our best guys out there, but we see the light at the end of the tunnel and we are struggling, but there is production here. You know, I mean, you're adding pieces, you're building for another day. Now, this is the time to really take a look at your team before your rookie draft. You know, I mean, because I think you attack the rookie draft a lot different. You attack the offseason a lot different. We all know rookie draft time is when dynasty leagues are the most busy. That's when you can make the most trades. People are in and out of the lobby all the time, you know, just checking things out. And a trade goes down and everyone hits the site immediately and wants to get involved. So I think, first of all, if you're really good, that's easy. I mean, it's easy to say I'm a contender.
You know when your team is
good,
know.
Right? But being really good in dynasty is a higher bar than being really good in redraft. Because like yourself, if you're a great owner, 2 or 3 teams in your league have built a team that would destroy a redraft team. You know, you're starting CeeDee Lamb as your third receiver. You know, I mean, and so the bar's a little higher. And rarely when I'm in that situation, though, am I buying Derrick Henry, though. I mean, I rarely go all in and mortgage the future. I prefer to build a dynasty, not a one-year wonder. Yes. I won it, and now I'm old, and it's going to be a miserable time for 5 years, you know?
And I remember you telling me something years ago where, your goal isn't just to win 1 year. It's to build a roster that's so dominant that makes the other owners and managers want to quit the league, right? Like,
and cry.
That's the goal.
And, right. And not believe in Santa Claus anymore.
Exactly.
Right.
So
it hurts their soul.
If you don't feel, I mean, obviously you're not going to feel that close, but if you don't even feel like you're going to get there in a year or two, that's probably the time to start thinking about a rebuild. But my next question for you is, how do you know when to do like a slight rebuild, just kind of shuffling some of the chairs on the Titanic or completely tearing things down? How do you know the difference?
So I think there's 3 layers. There's that I'm really good, I'm in it layer. There's the I'm really bad, it's time to really build for 2 years from now to be really good. And then there's the hardest one, the Steelers thing, is I'm going to compete and try to stick around while rebuilding for the future. And it can be done. You can walk that line depending what your roster looks like, especially if it's wide receiver strong. Again, that's a huge key to me. But it is certainly difficult. And I think my weakness when it's this time of year and I pull up a team. Oh, one thing I want to say too, when you have more than one team, like I don't know how many dynasty leagues you're in, but I'm in 6 now, which is about enough where I can still pay attention, but I don't get too thin. It's nice when 2 of them are a powerhouse, 2 of them are a total rebuild, and the other 2 let's see how it chips. Maybe I can outcoach somebody and get my way through to a championship. That makes it a little easier than if you're in one league and it's brutal and you just get your head beat in every week. Obviously,
One of the things that I struggle with is I have a lot of mismatched timelines. I think is the best way to put it. Like I have a league where I have Brock Bowers and Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors, but it's a super flex league, and I'm so weak at quarterback and running back, and all my quarterbacks and running backs are older. And it's one of those things like, do I start trading off the assets like Bowers and Thomas and start to rebuild because those guys are good enough to kind of keep you in the middle?
Yeah.
Or the other way, do you start trading future assets to try to upgrade quarterback and running back so you can make a run now? How do you handle that situation?
I'd have a really hard time in any situation trading Bowers or Neighbors.
Okay.
But I wouldn't, and I actually did this 1 year ago, of trading Bijan or Breece Hall. I think there's a huge difference between receivers and running backs. And I'm going to take a little side note here because I want to get your opinion on this. But way back when, I forget who our guest was, Ryan and I had on a Dynasty expert. And I thought it was brilliant, but also a little bit sneaky and maybe underhanded, that the best way to really do this, and you can do it in a startup too, is basically just ignore the running back position.
I think that's right. Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, just start garbage at running back. I mean, like, don't even feel bad about it because you're going to lose every week when you're getting like 10 total points from two running backs. And then you add that as a cherry on top at the end.
And that's the easiest part to fill of all the positions. You can get running backs because look at the turnover from 2 years, right? Like, look how many different running backs are now inside of our top 10 dynasty rankings. The last thing I wanted to ask you before we move on and we talk about how to trade in your dynasty leagues, I'm in a couple of leagues that have very strict tanking rules, right? Like if you're not setting a lineup, you can lose draft picks. Or if you should,
that kind of stuff's terrible.
Right. If you're purposely putting bad players in your lineup and benching your starters,
that's unethical to me. That's
right. As I say, what's the right way to go about that? Because I'm in a league that allows tanking. Okay. And what happens is at the beginning of the year, there's 3 or 4 teams that just aren't starting anybody. They're leaving all of their spots open. And that can really throw off the league if you happen to play those teams once or twice. You're playing teams that are, that have zeros everywhere. What's the right way to go about it?
I think that's the absolute wrong way to go about it.
I agree.
Because that screws up the winners. Like I got to play the garbage team that didn't show up and didn't have a quarter, didn't play anybody.
Yep.
No, I think it's like any professional league that tanking comes from the front office, not the coach and players. You know what I mean? Like in the real world, no player is going to miss a block on purpose or drop a pass on purpose or throw one in the seats when the tight end's wide open in the end zone. I mean, you're not going to have your own bad film. And what I mean by that is I think as a dynasty coach, your job on Sunday morning is to field your best lineup. Yeah. Now, if your front office doesn't allow you to have much to pick from, well,
that's why that running back strategy is the way to go, because
that's
you can have an awesome team, but if your running backs are weak, you're probably going to lose most weeks. I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Yes. And in general, that's always the last piece of the puzzle to add anyway, because they don't last, don't just try to, man, I'm going to give up some future picks just to get this running back so I have somebody to start every week. I need every week starter at running back. You really don't, especially if you do. And when in doubt, just keep drafting receivers. I mean, if you're in a total rebuild mode, we'll talk about how to handle drafts, but it's like, well, I'm pretty good at receiver. I got 5 guys. I need to start 4. Well, go get 6. Go get 7. In the early second round instead of Tootin, take Knoll. You know what I mean?
Take Kyle Williams to the Patriots or something like that. Yeah.
Right.
Let's talk about how to trade, because it's not as simple as trade your old guys for young guys. We'll give you some strategies on how to make better trades next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there has never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. we're getting further and further into the playoffs. You can still bet on the series lines, who's going to win each conference, and also who's going to win the NBA championship. So check out all of those futures lines over on FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head over to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. And if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. We're talking about how to rebuild your team into a Dynasty champion. And Matt, this is probably the most important part, trading.
Mm-hmm.
What is the right way to go about trading to when you're in the midst of a rebuild?
So everyone has the trade bait feature on their site, I assume, and everyone gets an email whenever you fill out your trade bait and you send it. And that can be really valuable. And the timing of it to me is really valuable. Like if you're in your rookie draft and you're going to be on the clock in 2 picks, you only put 1.09 is up for trade. Give people time to think about it. Like, ooh, if that guy's there, I'm going to make Williamson an offer, blah, blah, blah. But so I went to, while you're reading that, I went to just any of my leagues and I pulled up everyone's trade bait. Here's what not to do. And I'm not making fun of this owner, but everyone has this owner. And I've been this owner. Trade bait: Jalen Tolbert, Zach Ertz, Noah Gray, Hunter Henry, Brenton Strange.
Yeah.
I'm rebuilding. I want picks. I don't want any of those dudes.
No.
That's, I don't even, I'm mad that I opened the email, that I spent 4 seconds of my life reading about Jalen Tolbert. You know what I mean? Like, that's not attractive. I mean, you can make that. It's almost like you're in advertising. When someone opens your trade bait email, make it really alluring to the eyes. Like, I got 9,000 draft picks. I'm going to put them all there because they don't know that you have 9,000 draft picks. Like, make the whole league aware that this guy's got great picks and he's willing to do anything. Or one guy or one position. I got 4 really good quarterbacks. Like, one league, I have Jaden Daniels and I have Josh Allen. So I'll put trade bait, Josh Allen and Jalen Daniels. And that's all you get in the email. It's like everyone at least opens their eyes to that and says, this guy's got 2 of the monster studs. It's an obvious upgrade with what I'm playing with. I'm at least going to consider it. Or here's 4 tight ends, all that are decent. Just think about those around you, the Godfather. I mean, when you open the email, make it appealing. Even if it's just one guy and he's crappy, I need a 4th round pick for this dude. Maybe it's your backup tight end. They don't all have to be studs. Like the year I told you I traded Bijan last year. Bijan's going to the best offer. You get offers. Some of them are immediate deletes, but at least it gets the conversation going. And Marcus, this is my favorite thing, is I've had these conversations on Dynasty podcasts now for years. And I think I created this strategy and I love it. As I mentioned that I'm in 6 Dynasty leagues. So especially this time of year, but I also do it when it's really, really quiet and nothing's going on in the league. I will just totally camp out in one of those leagues. And what I mean by that is everyone has all their tabs open on their laptop. But I mean, I have a big lazy boy at home. I got a glass of bourbon next to me. I got, my laptop's open. I'm not working at the time, but I keep glancing over. And in the tab I have open is one of the leagues. And any little insect that falls into my web and just happens to wander into the league, I immediately pull their roster up because I know they're awake and they're alive and they have some interest in Dynasty at the time. I'm like, ooh, and I did this the other day. Like, I think Ricky Pearsall is really underrated.
Yeah.
Ooh, the Ricky Pearsall owner just fell in my lap. I'm going to send him an offer, 2/3 for Ricky Pearsall. He's not going to say yes, but he'll at least pay attention. And then, he rejects the trade. I send him an email back. Well, what would you need for Pearsall? And before you know it, he's a little unhappy with him. He didn't do great. I think I got him for 2.7 or something like that. And, but if you just camp out, if you concentrate on just one league, and you can do it really in the downtime too, and just leave it open for like a week. Like right now, the league I'm stalking is the one that has the next one to do a rookie draft. So I'm just leaving that open, and anyone that falls in the chat room, ooh, boy, he's been here a lot, or this guy hasn't been here in 35 days, and he still has guys on his injured reserve. I probably am not going to get a lot of action with that dude.
And I would say my best piece of advice is don't be afraid to quote unquote lose a trade if it makes your situation better, right? Like, I'll give you an example. I'm in a rebuilding situation. It's a super flex league. I have Geno Smith. Geno Smith is going to do me no good holding on to him on my roster, right? He's not part of my long-term plans. Do I want a second round pick for Geno Smith in Superflex rookie drafts? Of course. Right. But if I can only get a third, it's still better for me to do that trade than to hold on to Geno, who is probably going to put up top 18 QB numbers.
He's useful, right?
He's useful, but he's not useful to me. So it's okay to, if you look at the Dynasty trade calculator and you're losing a trade, but it makes your team better, don't be afraid to do that. I've seen so many Dynasty managers that are needing to rebuild, but they can't bring themselves to lose a trade, but it actually ends up hurting their franchise long term.
That's a great way of looking at it. And I've kind of changed my tune on that. I used to think no matter what the trade is, I will trade 99 cents for $1 every time.
Yep.
And my point is, I'm going to try to be the most active owner in the league. And all those pennies start to add up into a nickel, into a dime, into a quarter. If I make more moves than everybody else and I win every trade by 1%, that's good business. You know what I mean? But there is certainly something to that too, that Geno he's a depreciating asset. I mean, he's not going to get any better. Maybe you can hold him through training camp. You wait for a quarterback to go down and you get that second, in the second week of the season when Sam Darnold and JJ McCarthy both get hurt, you know what I mean? Or whatever it is. But some of it, you just have to have what is he going to do for me now? What's he going to do for me in the future? And picks are always liquid as could be. I mean, when in doubt, just give me picks, if it's future picks or right.
And the other thing I wanted to mention is I'm pretty purposeful when I'm rebuilding. Like, rather than just trading my old player for a young player, I'm going to go out and try to target 2 or 3 guys that I think are undervalued young guys. Like, I'm going to give you an example. I don't love this player, but I think
Pearsall, I just mentioned, those type of guys,
Keon Coleman is extremely cheap right now, right? And he's probably not going to help you win a lot of games this year because I still think he's so young. But that might be a guy that you can buy low on, and maybe that's a target. Players like that, I'm going to be trying to buy low on. Obviously, if you can get draft picks, you can get draft picks. A lot of times in my league, managers are so unwilling to trade draft picks. So going after players like that, I think, isn't a bad strategy if you're trying to just rid yourself of some of the dynasty cloggers, like a Geno Smith, who is going to be productive this year, but if you're rebuilding, he doesn't help you at all. In fact, he hurts you more than he's going to help you.
No, that's a great strategy. And you opened the show saying, I don't always know when to go in or, all in or rebuild. Rebuilding's fun, by the way. I mean,
it is fun.
You get taken on the chin, but it is fun. It's like, man, I got 3 first-round picks next year. But knowing you, I think you realize what your best asset is, or one of your best assets is the talent evaluation of it. Keon Coleman's too cheap right now. I mean, that's a great way of looking at it. I think Pearsall's too cheap, but we can come up with probably 20 names that just scanning the league, like, I'm buying at that price. Realize all these guys have a sticker price and it changes every day. It's a stock, and man, that guy's too cheap. And just always be aware of what the market is saying. And just start targeting players, whoever has Pearsall, whoever has Coleman, just send them something,
We don't hate players. We just hate their prices sometimes, right?
Right.
And
right.
That's what you treat it as, a stock market. And I think you'll be in better shape. Let's talk about the rookie draft, because I do think your strategy is going to change in your rookie draft, depending on what level of your rebuild you're at. We will get to that next. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Show. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and the news never stops. Host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. All right, Matt, let's talk about the rookie draft. So if you're rebuilding, should you handle your rookie drafts differently than if you're contending?
I think less so than people think. That because most leagues there's a lot of activity. That you can trade guys throughout the year. You can trade guys into the off season. You can certainly trade the guys at the rookie draft. Usually before the draft, it's tough, before the NFL draft. But more often than not, with rookie drafts, I kind of ignore the state of my team and just give me the best player. Give me the best player. Whoever's worth the most. Like I'm loaded at receiver, but I'm still taking Hunter anyways. At one of my best teams, I have 2 first-round picks because I traded ahead, blah, blah, blah. And I have 1.02. I'm really light at running back. Like this team, I'm going to pull it up right now. This is like, I am trying to win the whole thing. But my running backs are Aaron Jones, Jalen Warren, Najee Harris, 2 Steelers, Ekeler, Bigsby. Meanwhile, my receivers are Chase, St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Pittman. I'm loaded there. Mm-hmm. And I have the 1.02. Logic says take Hampton. I'm taking Hunter. You know what I mean? I just think he's better. And I'll figure out running back at some point.
But if you're rebuilding, I think you want to be less likely to draft those running backs because they're just
100%.
Depreciating assets, right? So
yeah.
Another strategy that I like to use is if I know I'm a couple years away, like 2 or 3 years away, mm-hmm. I don't mind drafting like a tight end in the middle of round 1, provided there's a good option there. And I think like this year, let's say you're drafting at 108, 109, and Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland are there. I kind of think that's not a bad option. Those guys are both going to be top 7, top 8 dynasty tight ends right away, but they're probably not going to help you win a lot of games this year. So you're actually, you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone, right? You're getting a really good asset, but you're also not drafting somebody that's going to help you a lot right away. I'm more open to doing that than drafting, let's say, a Quinshon Judkins at that spot.
Right.
Travion Henderson.
Someone that's going to get beat up like crazy over the next couple of years and isn't going to be worth as much. I think that's a great way of looking at it. No question. One thing you said, and I'm not going to fight you on it, but like you said, if I'm 2 or 3 years away, I don't know that you could give me any roster that would be 3 years away.
Probably.
You know what I mean? Just so I'm not trying to scare people off from rebuilding. Like you can get back in this thing in 2 years pretty strong if you're smart and you make the right moves. Give me 3, I could be pretty solid. Like
because things change so fast.
They change so fast, right? When I was really new to Dynasty, I took over an orphan team that was horrendous. And 3 drafts in a row, I forget exactly who I picked, but I know the first year I took Todd Gurley 1-1. The next year I took like Zeke Elliott 1-1, mm-hmm. and then I took I think McCaffrey 1-3, and then the year after that I was undefeated. I just steamrolled the league.
Yeah,
it can happen that fast. And I wouldn't recommend taking running backs, but they were the clear number 1 that year. It'd be like passing on Genty. You don't do that exactly. Either. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We're talking about if guys are in similar range, like a
right.
Henderson. But yeah, if you have 101, draft Genty or see what you can sell him for. Maybe you
might get 4 first for him.
4 for exactly.
Right.
So
give me Garrett Wilson 1-5 in next year's first and something else. Perfect. Right.
If you're rebuilding, you're right. It is a lot of fun. It's just the hard part is knowing when to rebuild. And again, I'm going to emphasize this, what I said at the beginning. I really struggle throwing away a season because I just want to try to compete. There's part of me, and maybe this is just my ego and my pride talking, that thinks I can elevate this team during the year. I can have 1 or 2 shrewd moves, and mm-hmm. maybe I'll be in the championship. The goal is to build a dynasty champion, right? Like
rip their souls out for a decade.
Exactly.
Right.
Keep that in mind. It's different than redraft. You want to be the team every year where they're looking at their roster and saying, I got to rebuild because there's no way I'm going to beat Matt's team this year.
No,
that's the goal here.
That's the goal. Dynasties. You're trying to be the Patriots, the 70 Steelers. That's what you're looking to do here, not one and done. One thing I want to throw out there that I think is really interesting, and it's not someone in the business, but it's someone that's it's a commissioner of one of my leagues, and he's really, really smart with his running backs. Every year, he has more future firsts than anyone I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And what he does is when he drafts a running back high, which because teams are always good, he really puts a shelf life on them. Like if he drafts Bijan at 1-1, after like 2 or 3 years, he's selling that running back for future first, no matter what. And once in a while, the McCaffreys or Henrys might bite you in the butt. But Javonte Williams didn't. You know, I mean, like, I mean, there's most of the time you win that battle, especially if you're just
a couple years
right,
ago,
right.
5. So I agree.
So you keep drafting running backs high, but he sells them very fast. You know, after 1,500 yards in year 2. This guy's RB2 in Dynasty. Dump him.
I was going to say, I think Bijan's a perfect example of that right now. Bijan's ADP could literally never get higher. Overall, right now, he's the 6th player. Jahmyr Gibbs is the 4th overall player. You could flip.
Gibbs is another one.
Yeah, you could flip Jahmyr Gibbs for CeeDee Lamb right now. Their ADPs are basically the same.
And who would you rather have in 2 years?
CeeDee.
Of course. Even though he's older, but of course, yeah.
Because receivers just age a lot better than what wide receivers do. So I think that's a really good strategy. Last thing before we go. Make sure you're not addicted to rebuilding. I'm thinking of one manager in my league that
I can side that way too. When in doubt, I side towards the rebuild, and I think it's a bit of a weakness.
And there's a manager in one of my leagues that has been in a rebuild for about 10 years where he loves collecting picks. And then he does the strategy that you try. He'll trade away these guys when they're 24, 25 without really ever going for it. At some point, it's okay to go for it and try to win a championship. You'll know when your roster is close enough.
Yeah. I mean, it's great I have more future picks than anybody every year. And then it's like, okay, well, you got to make the picks and turn them into wins. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that can be a habit.
It's addicting.
Too. Yeah, it can be addicting. It's like, I got another future first.
Exactly.
It's 2029, but who cares? Yeah, right.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Check out the channel on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcast. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Matt on Twitter @WilliamsonNFL. I'm at Marcus _Mosher, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.